Now, not later when it's too late. Call the experts at Swiss America Trading at 1-800-289-2646. That's 1-800-289-2646, and have them show you how to protect yourself. Call 1-800-289-2646 and mention my name, William Cooper, for a free newsletter on protecting your future. For by protecting your future, you're keeping the future of this program alive, and I hope freedom for the world. Call today, 1-800-289-2646. Don't go away, folks. We've got to take a break. I'll be right back after this very short pause. That didn't take long, now did it. Folks, if you've followed my broadcast for any length of time, you know I have been bringing you news of the world without sponsorship. In part, I have been leery of allowing just any corporation to buy time on my show. I'm proud to announce a new alliance. Swiss America Trading Corporation and myself are committed to preparing my listening audience for the upcoming economic trauma. For over 11 years, Swiss America has been supplying over 10,000 clients with hard assets and constant information on how best to protect their assets. For a limited time, interested listeners can receive a complimentary newsletter if you mention my name, William Cooper, and ask for the information on protecting your future. Call 1-800-289-2646 and invest the time it takes to read one of the most important publications of our times. Call 1-800-289-2646 and do it right now. Folks, what I'm going to give you now comes from collective speeches of Congressman Louis T. McFadden as compiled from the Congressional Record. From Emissary Publications, their number is 503-824-2050. That's 503-824-2050. I'll read it one more time. Area code 503-824-2050. The name is Emissary Publications. The title is Collective Speeches of Congressman Louis T. McFadden as compiled from the Congressional Record. Their address is 9205 Southeast Clackamas Road, number 1776, Clackamas, Oregon, 97015. Call them and ask them for a free catalog because they have an awful lot of information there that you're going to want to purchase and read, and their prices are very reasonable. Now, this is from Chapter 16, entitled The Treacherous and Disloyal Conduct of the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks, and this speech was given on Friday, June 10th, 1932. Now, you can look this up in the Congressional Record. You don't have to go to Emissary Publications to get this, but in the Congressional Record, you have to go through years and years and days of text of the Congressional Record where they have compiled all the speeches into one booklet. This is what it says in here. Now listen very carefully. Mr. Chairman, we have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known. I refer to the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks. The Federal Reserve Board, a government board, has cheated the government of the United States and the people of the United States out of enough money to pay the national debt. The depredations and the iniquities of the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks acting together have cost this country enough money to pay the national debt several times over. This evil institution has impoverished and ruined the people of the United States, has bankrupted itself, and has practically bankrupted our government. It has done this through the defects of the law under which it operates, through the maladministration of that law by the Federal Reserve Board, and through the corrupt practices of the moneyed vultures who control it. Some people think the Federal Reserve Banks are United States government institutions. They are not government institutions. They are private credit monopolies which prey upon the people of the United States for the benefit of themselves and their foreign customers. Foreign and domestic speculators and swindlers and rich and predatory moneylenders. In that dark crew of financial pirates, there are those who would cut a man's throat to get $1 out of his pocket. There are those who send money into states to buy votes to control our legislation. And there are those who maintain an international propaganda for the purpose of deceiving us and of wheedling us into the granting of new concessions which will permit them to cover up their past misdeeds and set again in motion their gigantic train of crime. Those 12 private credit monopolies were deceitfully and disloyally foisted upon this country by bankers who came here from Europe and who repaid us for our hospitality by undermining our American institutions. Those bankers took money out of this country to finance Japan in a war against Russia. They created a reign of terror in Russia with our money in order to help that war along. They instigated the separate peace between Germany and Russia and thus drove a wedge between the Allies in the World War. They financed Trotsky's mass meetings of discontent and rebellion in New York. They paid Trotsky's passage from New York to Russia so that he might assist in the destruction of the Russian Empire. They fomented and instigated the Russian Revolution, and they placed a large fund of American dollars at Trotsky's disposal in one of their branch banks in Sweden, so that through him Russian homes might be thoroughly broken up and Russian children flung far and wide from their natural protectors. They have since begun the breaking up of American homes and the dispersal of American children. It has been said that President Wilson was deceived by the attentions of these bankers and by the philanthropic poses they assumed. It has been said that when he discovered the manner in which he had been misled by Colonel House, he turned against that busybody, that holy monk of the financial empire, and showed him the door. He had the grace to do that, and in my opinion, he deserves great credit for it. The next series of documentation comes from a book entitled Secrets of the Federal Reserve, The London Connection, Jekyll Island Edition by Eustace Mullins. You can also get this from Emissary Publications, 503-824-2050, 9205 Southeast Clackamas Road, number 1776, Clackamas, Oregon, 97015. Ask them for a free catalog, folks. What I'm going to read you first is from Chapter 5, The House of Rothschild. And this is paragraph 4. Thus we see that the 1910 plot to seize control of the money and credit of the people of the United States was planned by men who already controlled most of the country's resources. It seemed to John Moody practically automatic that they should continue with their operations. What John Moody did not know or did not tell his readers was that the most powerful men in the United States were themselves answerable to another power, a foreign power, and a power which had been steadfastly seeking to extend its control over the young republic of the United States since its very inception. This power was the financial power of England, centered in the London branch of the House of Rothschild. The fact was that in 1910, the United States was for all practical purposes being ruled from England, and so it is today. The 10 largest bank holding companies in the United States are firmly in the hands of certain banking houses, all of which have branches in London. Now we skip over to page 50. Paragraph 3. In 1836, President Andrew Jackson, infuriated by the tactics of the bankers who were attempting to persuade him to renew the charter of the Second Bank of the United States, said, quote, "You are a den of vipers. I intend to rout you out, and by the eternal God I will rout you out. If the people only understood the rank injustice of our money and banking system, there would be a revolution before morning." And then to the bottom of the page, Henry Clews, the famous banker, in his book 28 Years in Wall Street, states that the panic of 1837 was engineered because the charter of the Second Bank of the United States had run out in 1836. Not only did President Jackson promptly withdraw government funds from the Second Bank of the United States, but he deposited these funds, $10 million, in state banks. The immediate result, Clues tells us, is that the country began to enjoy great prosperity. This sudden flow of cash caused an immediate expansion of the national economy, and the government paid off the entire national debt, leaving a surplus of $50 million in the Treasury, a huge, tremendous, unbelievable fortune in those days, folks. The European financiers had the answer to this situation. Clues further states the panic of 1837 was aggravated by the Bank of England when it in one day threw out all the paper connected with the United States, unquote. And later, one of the high water marks of the successful Rothschild-Peabody-Morgan business venture was the Panic of 1857. It had been 20 years since the Panic of 1837. Its lessons had been forgotten by hordes of eager investors who were anxious to invest the profits of a developing America. It was time to fleece them again. The stock market operates like a wave washing up on the beach. It sweeps with it many minuscule creatures who derive all of their life support from the oxygen and water of the wave. They coast along at the crest of the tide of prosperity. Suddenly the wave, having reached the high water mark on the beach, recedes, leaving all of the creatures gasping on the sand. Another wave may come in time to save them, but in all likelihood it will not come as far, and some of the sea creatures are doomed. In the same manner, waves of prosperity fed by newly created money through an artificial contraction of credit recedes, leaving those it had borne high to gasp and die without hope of salvation, unquote. And folks, that is what is happening now. To continue over on page 53, LaRouche tells us that on February 5, 1891, a secret association known as the Round Table Group was formed in London by Cecil Rhodes, his banker, Lord Rothschild, the Rothschild in-law, Lord Rosebery, and Lord Curzon. He states that in the United States, the Round Table was represented by the Morgan Group. Dr. Carroll Quigley refers to this group as, quote, the British American Secret Society, unquote, in Tragedy and Hope, stating that, quote, the chief backbone of this organization grew up along the already existing financial cooperation running from the Morgan Bank in New York to a group of international financiers in London led by Lazard Brothers in 1901, unquote. William Guy Carr in Pawns in the Game states that, quote, in 1899, J.P. Morgan and Drexel went to England to attend the International Bankers' Convention. When they returned, J.P. Morgan had been appointed head representative of the Rothschild interests in the United States. As the result of the London Conference, J.P. Morgan and Company of New York, Drexel and Company of Philadelphia, Grenfell and Company of London, and Morgan Harrissy of Paris, M.M. Warburg Company of Germany and America, and the House of Rothschild were all affiliated. Apparently unaware of the Peabody connection with the Rothschilds and the fact that the Morgans had always been affiliated with the House of Rothschild, Carr supposed that he had uncovered this relationship as of 1899, when in fact it went back to 1835. And folks, I'm going to interrupt here and interject that it goes all the way back to the Knights Templar before their destruction or supposed destruction in 1307. For the international bankers are the Knights Templars.